boys and girls, it's Mrs. Mencer again. I want to talk to you today a little bit about reviewing our money and the value of our coins as well as the names. I'm going to start with the first, which is the quarter. If you look at the quarter closely, you can see George Washington. I know that it's George Washington because I look closely and he's the guy. Look at his hair. Look at, he has no collar. Look at, he has that very slopey nose. At the top of a quarter it says Liberty. On the back of most quarters, on the back of a lot of standard quarters, is just the eagle, okay? And at the bottom it even says $quarter. It's 1 quarter. Now over the years people got a little fancier and we started making these things called state quarters. So on the front you've still got our first president, George Washington, and it still says $quarter. But on the back you have all different representations of each state. This is the representation for our state, Pennsylvania. Here is Kansas. The front of that quarter still has George Washington. Look at him closely. You need to know him. He's our first president. George Washington, he's on a quarter. It also says $quarter at the bottom. And then if I look, this is another, oh, is it a state quarter? It's Cumberland Island. They started making them not just for states like Pennsylvania, but also for different islands and parks and historic places. Now, if you look here, I have 4 quarters. I have 4 quarters because there are 4 quarters in $1. Before schools let out, we were talking about touch points and how we would use touch points on coins, okay? And when we would do this, we would go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Those touch points on a coin are used to count up the value of that coin. If I was counting 4 quarters all together, I would go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100. I count to 100 because there's 100 cents in $1. Hence, there are 4 quarters in $1. The next coin I want to talk to you about is the dime. Let's see. On a dime, the dime is much smaller than a quarter. If I compared the size, you can see how much smaller a dime is than a quarter. A dime does not have the same president on the front of it as a quarter. A quarter has George Washington. A dime has Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It has President Roosevelt on the front of it, okay? This is a dime. It's the small silver one. On the back of a dime, you've got 3 symbols for peace and prosperity, okay? That would be the torch in the center. That's the one I always look for. I think it's a torch, an olive branch, and an oak branch, okay? At the bottom, it says 1 dime, okay? A dime is worth 10 cents. If you look, I have a whole row of dimes out here on my kitchen counter. And if I were going to count them up, I would think about my touch points like we talked about in school. And I would count them like this: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100. And I'm using those touch points like that, again, to count up to 100, because 100 is equal to 100 cents, and 100 cents is equal to $1. As I put my touch points on my dimes, did you notice? I have 2 touch points on each dime. That's because every dime is worth 10 cents. So I go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100. okay? Look at how many more dimes I need than quarters to make a dollar. I only need 4 quarters to make a dollar. I need 10 dimes. The next coin that's lower in value than a dime is called a nickel. And a nickel is larger in size than a dime, but it's worth less. A nickel is easily confused with a quarter. A lot of people have a hard time telling the difference between a nickel and a quarter. Let me show you some of the differences. One difference between a nickel and a quarter is the person on it, okay? This is not the same guy. A quarter has George Washington on it. A nickel has Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is my personal favorite, okay? He's my favorite president. And the reason I like him is because he was an innovator. He was a very creative person. He kind of did a little bit of everything. Okay, he was involved in our government, and he was the primary writer of the Declaration of Independence, which is a really important document for us as United States citizens. If you look at him, in my opinion, he looks good on this, right? Look, he's got his nice coat on. You could see the collar. He has that good-looking face compared to George Washington. Okay, these are things I said in class. Remember when we talked about this? And I said, I think Thomas Jefferson's a pretty handsome president. Okay, he's a good-looking guy. Look at that. Now, if you look closely at the nickel, do you see? It doesn't have any words above Thomas Jefferson's head. Now over here, George Washington, our first president on the quarter, he has a word above his head, okay? If I look at the back, you remember how I said Thomas Jefferson was a very innovative person? Well, he was an architect also, and he designed his own house. And his house is called Monticello, and that's on the back of his coin. That's on the back of a nickel. President Jefferson designed that house, okay? That's why it's on the back of his coin. If you look at the back of a nickel, it says 5 cents, okay? This is different than the back of a quarter. Remember, the back of the quarter has that eagle, and state quarters still look different than the back of a nickel because you're looking for this specific house. This specific house is on the back of a nickel. It's on the back of a nickel because that's the Thomas Jefferson's house, okay? And Thomas Jefferson is that handsome president on the front of a nickel, okay? He's the one with that collar, has a jacket on. His hair looks different than Washington's also. See, Washington has those curls. Thomas Jefferson doesn't. His is all kind of just straight and pulled right back, okay? So they look different. This is a quarter. This is George Washington. This is a nickel. This is Thomas Jefferson. If you feel the edge of a nickel, it's smooth, okay? It doesn't have any lines. If you look at the edge of a quarter and you feel it, you can see the little lines all the way across, okay? That's one difference too. That's for people who are blind, that they can tell the difference between the coins. A quarter is slightly larger than the nickel, but they are similar in size, but they're very different in value. Remember, on our quarter, we have 5 touch points: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. On a nickel, we only have 1 touch point right in the center because a nickel is worth 5 cents. 5, okay? If I come back over here to my collection of nickels, I have a lot on my counter. And the reason I have a lot is because it takes many to get up to 100. Let me show you. Count with me. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100. It takes all of those nickels to equal $1. I stopped at 100 because 100 coins, or 100 cents rather, is equal to $1. There are actually 20 nickels in $1 compared to those quarters. Remember, there's only 4 quarters in $1. There's 10 dimes in $1. There's 20 nickels. That's a lot more. You need more because each coin has a lower value. The lower the value, the more of them you'll need to get to the same amount. If we're talking about counting to $1 and you're talking about a coin that's worth more, you'll need fewer than the coins that have a lower value, which takes me to the coin with the lowest value, and that is a penny. And for this, I don't even need my dry erase marker because a penny does not have any touch points. And the reason a penny doesn't have any touch points is because it is lower in value than 5. Remember, when we use touch points for coins, we count by 5s. Well, we don't have a value of 5 when I look at a single penny. A penny is only worth 1 cent. Each penny has our President Abraham Lincoln on the front. A penny is the easiest coin to identify because it's the one that's copper compared to the other coins, which are all silver, okay, in color, silver in color. The back of a penny says 1 cent, and it has a historical building called the Lincoln Memorial. That's in Washington, D.C. That is built to commemorate Abraham Lincoln. Okay, Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States. Did you notice that all of these coins have presidents on the front, right? The quarter has George Washington. The dime has President Roosevelt. The nickel has my favorite, Thomas Jefferson. And the penny has Abraham Lincoln. Now, I don't even have enough pennies to show you a full dollar, because if I wanted to count to $1 in pennies, I would be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I would keep counting and counting and counting all the way up till I got to 100. I count pennies by 1 because they're worth 1 cent. They don't have any touch points because they're only worth 1. If I have a touch point on a coin, it's because I'm counting that touch point by 5, okay? So, really quickly, look at the coin. Tell someone in your house or say it out loud. What's the name of this coin? Good, quarter. How much is it worth? Good, 25 cents. What's the name of this coin? Good, this is a dime. What's the value of a dime? Good, 10 cents. Next is this coin. What's the name of this coin? Good, this is a nickel. How much is a nickel worth? Good, a nickel is worth 5 cents. And our coin with the smallest value is known as a penny. And how much is a penny worth? Right, 1 cent. You got it. This was our quick review of money. And next video, I'll be talking about how we count collections of coins. Thanks for watching, guys. Please keep practicing. I miss you.